Capitol, breaking windows, breaking doors, forcing their way in, stepping aside. And the photographs of, well, I don't know what the circumstances, the photograph of it looked like you had some of the Capitol Police taking selfies with these people. That has to be thoroughly investigated. The authorities responsible have to be held accountable for the failures that occurred, and we have to make sure that this can never, ever happen again. The damage done to our reputation around the world by a president of the United States encouraging a mob. This reminded me more of states I've visited over the 100 countries I've gone to, in third tin horn dictatorships. It just cannot be sustained, has to be immediately investigated in depth, and people have to be held accountable.
And lastly, do you think you need to change any of the planning for your inauguration as a result of this?
A totally different entity is in charge of the inauguration that was in charge of protecting the Capitol, the Secret Service. I have great confidence in the Secret Service. I have great confidence in their ability to make sure that the inauguration goes off safely and goes off without a hitch. So it's a different, so I have confidence in what is going, in the planning that's been underway before this and continues with the Secret Service as the lead agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Harris, good to see you both. I want to pick up on something that you just said about President Trump actively encouraging the insurrection at the Capitol. Given the perceived threat that he poses, my question to you is not so much about the role that Congress should play in impeachment, but rather, should President Trump, in your estimation, remain in office?
I didn't think, look, I've been saying for now well over a year, he is not fit to serve. He is not fit to serve. He's one of the most incompetent presidents in the history of the United States of America. And so the idea that I think he shouldn't be out of office yesterday is not the issue. The question is, what happens with 14 days left to go or 13 days left to go? And I think that what 81 million people stood up and said, it's time for him to go. And the United States Senate voted 93-6 to confirm that we should be sworn in. We were duly elected. So I think it's important we get on with the business of getting him out of office. The quickest way that that will happen is us being sworn in on the 20th. What action happens before or after that is a judgment for the Congress to make, but that's what I am looking forward to, him leaving office. I was told that on the way up here, way over here, that he indicated he wasn't going to show up at the inauguration. One of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing him not showing up.
Earlier, you'd said that if you'd hope that he would show up only in the sense that it was valuable to send a signal to the world about the transfer of power. You've clearly changed your perspective on that.
Because he has clearly demonstrated, he's exceeded even my worst notions about him. He's been an embarrassment to the country, embarrassed us around the world, not worthy to hold that office. If we were 6 months out, we should be moving everything to get him out of office, impeaching him again, trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, whatever it took to get him out of office. But I am focused now on us taking control as president and vice president on the 20th and to get our agenda moving as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Another question about holding public officials to account, and this is about an issue that's no longer a headline but is no less significant and serious, and it's about the more than 600 children who were orphaned under the Trump administration as a result of the family separation policy along the border. During the campaign, you said that practice was criminal. Will you commit to making sure that the Trump administration officials responsible for that policy will be held to account?
I'll commit that our Justice Department and our investigative arms will make judgments about who is responsible, how they're responsible, and whether or not the conduct is criminal across the board. But as I said yesterday, I am not going to tell the Justice Department who they should prosecute and who they should not. That's a judgment that will be made by the Attorney General of the United States of America, not influenced by me. But there will be a thorough investigation of who's responsible and whether or not the responsibility is criminal. And if that is concluded, the Attorney General will make that judgment. I will not intervene to tell him who he should or shouldn't indict or if he should indict.
And lastly, beyond the COVID plan, which you've detailed, what are your legislative priorities? You've talked about infrastructure. You've talked about introducing an immigration bill. After January 20th, Democrats will control the House and the Senate. What do you do first?
Three different issues there in that same question. One, the commitments I made that what I would introduce, not necessarily we would move to, but introduce in the United States Congress first, I will do. I will introduce an immigration bill immediately and have it sent to the appropriate committees to begin movement. I will, in fact, countermand executive orders that the president has, in fact, initiated that are contrary to what I think is either his authority and/or, even if it's authority, contrary to the interests of the United States on environmental issues and a whole range of other things. And thirdly, I will immediately move, though, to the most urgent need of asking the Congress to give me the financial wherewithal to deal with the virus, to be able to move so that we have Operation Warp Speed really working. Warp Speed got the vaccine to places that were delivered, but did not get them from those vials into people's arms. And so it is a gigantic logistical concern of how we do that. I'm committed to get 100 million shots in people's arms in the first 100 days. I'm committed to insisting that in all federal jurisdictions, any place I have control as president, everyone will be mandated to wear a mask in interstate transportation as well as federal facilities. And thirdly, I'm committed to moving as rapidly as possible to get the vaccine to teachers and the material to children that can provide for the safe opening of our schools at the end of that, beginning at the end of that 100 days. They're the most urgent things we have to do now, immediately upon getting office. There's going to be multiple things, as you well know, because you're a seasoned veteran of how this policy, how we work, and that is that there will be other committees will be holding hearings on a whole range of issues, from my positions on infrastructure, what we should be doing to generate a green economy, and so on. But in terms of the immediate need to get done, not just introduced, but to get done, voted on, and get the money and resources to do it, it turns out that the most urgent need is dealing with the virus, number one, and economic relief.
I was just reading a tweet coming across here. It says, I have zero sympathy for the guy who had a heart attack after roasting his own nutsack with a taser. Oh, I can't hear you.
Okay, is that better? There you go.
I knew you were just laughing at that. That caught me funny. I knew you'd laugh at it.
It is brilliant. On a side note, we should have both Frank and Master Grant on with us tonight. I did not hear a negative from either of them. I'm still waiting to see if we do, but so far it looks like we're going to get both of them on tonight, which is going to be nice. But that's hysterical.
That might be the tweet of the day.
Yeah, it very well could be. You know, the problem that we have, Lou, is that especially in our Discord channel, I'm probably in. Let me count right now, just for our sake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm actually in 11 channels on Discord, right?
Okay.
And I'm not by any means blowing our own horn or anything like that. So, I understand where I'm coming from. But the folks in our channel seem to be the most up to date, and everybody watching. I mean, I understand this is before we actually start, but we already have a few people watching. If honestly, if you want in, please just send us a just DM us, and we'll get you in our channel. The amount of data and the amount of news and the amount of I guess current events that we share with the channel is so up to date and happens so often and so frequently, and hits and we hit each other so quickly that trying to keep up with it and trying to start to bring all this stuff together in a way that we can present it to people on the channel, it is quite a bit of an undertaking, right? I mean, just look at the stuff, and Master Grant isn't on yet, and Frank isn't on yet, and some of the people in our channel who don't get on our show are, but just between you and me, just the stuff that just you and I share with the channel every day, and we have like real jobs, right? Quote unquote real jobs, is absolutely mind-boggling.
I could see how, like, you take any pundit at night or news person at night trying to get ready, ABC, like for the 6:30 news and stuff. My God, the last 4 years they have to be tearing their hair out,
Oh, they have to be.
thinking they have the story of the night, and 10 minutes before they go on, they're probably throwing papers up in the air.
I know for a fact that Maddow loses her mind.
I mean,
You know?
and she said that. I had a whole show till 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah. She said that multiple times. Right. Last night, Cuomo actually thanked who's on before Anderson Cooper. He said, thanks for covering for me, right? Because he was unprepared for everything that happened within just the last 15 minutes before he got on the air. And he said, live, thanks for holding the fort down while I prep for this. I watched them last night. Right. It's frightening, literally frightening how quickly this is changing, and how rapidly these things are going. And it's not just it's not just today or like the last couple of days. It's been this way for Lou, at least since we started, right? Hey, Frank.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
I don't know if you saw this. This is a Newsweek poll. It wasn't something, looks like it was pulled out of somebody's ass. What percentage of Republican voters do you think support storming of the Capitol?
50.
I'm going to say 45%.
Yeah, it's 45. That's kind of a scary number to me.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. This happened today at 9, well, let's say 10 o'clock this morning. Okay. I had my chiropractor's appointment, and you guys both know who my chiropractor is. Lou, you know where his office is. It's literally a mile, less than a mile from my house, right? And he told me flat out, because he knows well, at least as of today, he knows that I am rather, let's say, rather left leaning, right? Uh, and we both said the same thing, and that is his party, because let's face it, here in Mayberry, Lou, I swear to God, your house and my house are the only two liberal houses there is in this entire fucking area, this entire township. He said he's really concerned about his party because they very well could, if they don't get their shit together quick, I mean, really, really like astronomically quick, they're in a lot of trouble. And he's not real sure which way they're gonna. And this is, you know, your old school George Will Republican, and he's very, very concerned about which direction his party is headed, and he's not sure that it can survive. And I've heard this on more than one occasion, not just with this guy, but with quote unquote old school Republicans who are far younger than we are.
There's you know, out in this area too, we have our MAGAs, but you still have a lot of, like him, old school George Will Republicans. This is farm country. You know, that's just kind of the way it is out here. Which, you know, I would tend to think if you pinned them down, the people out here that are more the traditional, that don't have the MAGA flags and signs still up in their yards, I bet they're more like him.
Oh, and you know who it is, right? And yeah, I think that most of the folks who are here, who I serve with, right? Because I'm on the county payroll, right? And most of the people that I serve with, who, with the exception of one person, all of them are older than I am. And I'm not making a joke. I'm being honest. You know, more your age than mine, right? One guy on the commission that I serve on is younger than me. They are the typical old school conservative Republican folks that actually are of sound mind, right? It's just a philosophical difference that we have with them, not an ideological difference. And I don't think that this conversation that I had today is exclusive. I think that you have a whole lot of people in that party, and Frank, jump in whenever you like, who I think are legitimately concerned with their party and what's going to happen in the next, I don't know, 6 months to a year.
Well, the thing that amazes me about your anecdote there, which is I get it, and I believe that gentleman is telling you the truth when he says that, and then you justify, or I guess we contrast that with the statistic that there's 45% of that party that's polled that believes it was okay to storm the Capitol, and then let's also compare that to the other faction that is trying to blame the storming of the Capitol on Antifa, who say that, you know, oh no, this wasn't MAGA people, this was Antifa people. But right. the more you see who was there, the more you see their profiles on Facebook, the more you see, you know, their history that reveals itself. They're all MAGA, clearly. I mean, we knew that from day one, from minute one. But you know, they want to try to push blame because there's a lot of that party that is, as your chiropractor is, who are ashamed of the behaviors that went on, and they want to try to blame somebody else. So. Right. It's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on right now, and because of that, it's I'm going to just say it's virtually impossible for them to get their act together because they can't. They're such a cluster. You know what? They're an absolute cluster right now. They're a bunch of nitwits.
I could see that becoming the so-called Patriot Party with that mindset.
Well, that's a really good question. Here's the question I have for both of you before we really start getting into our show tonight. Is I had a conversation with a gentleman that I work with who I have a whole lot of respect for, and I truly value his opinion a whole lot. Who is far younger than we are, but he's just one of those folks. He's one of those folks that you say has an old soul, right? And I asked him, I said, look, your party's in a lot of trouble. And here's my question for you. Do you think that these MAGAs and teabaggers, because that's what I call them, teabaggers, right, are going to form their own party and splinter the Republican Party? Or do you think that these guys are going to take over the Republican Party and your old school, like we like to say, your old school George Will Republicans are going to form a third party? Which way do you think this is going to go? Is it going to be the traditionalists who create their own party, or is it going to be these MAGA knuckleheads who are going to create a new party? Because in either case, these guys are screwed, because you can't control these guys anymore. So which way which one? And Frank, I'll start with you. Which way do you think this is going to go? Or do you think there's a third way that this is going to happen?
I mean, given the hey, Grant, how you doing?
Hi, everybody.
Given the Steve Schmitz of the world and the Lincoln Project and all that stuff, I kind of feel like they almost have to start their own party, which is going to be a more, maybe they'll call it something that, harkens, to the conservatism, that harkens to the fiscal responsibility. They'll give it some kind of name that's more rooted in traditional, Republican ideals. And then they'll leave. I think they're going to have to leave, because you nailed it to me. You nailed it on the head. I mean, you're not going to root out all these Tea Party teabaggers and MAGA folk who are infiltrated in the Republican Party now. So I think you have to go start your own party. That's my take. I mean, that's the only way I think that they can do it.
Lou, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, who knows what the name would be? That's
Well,
here or there.
let's just, we don't, I don't care about the name, right? Just
But you know what? I could see them peeling off some of those right center Democrats.
you think?
I could see right center Dems that were afraid of the MAGAs, but that may be appealing to them. That they're the ones that are afraid of AOC, and some of the ones that in their perception are way left, but really aren't that far left.
Master Grant, my question but before you got on was, look, you're seeing a for lack of a better term, a destruction of the Republican Party. And my question is, do you think that it's going to be the old school, and we said, quote unquote, George Will Republicans who form a third party, or do you think it's these MAGA / teabaggers who will abandon the Republicans and form their own party? Which way do you think it's going to go?
I believe that it's going to go. The MAGA Tea Parties are going to split, and they're going to form under Trump, as long as he stays out of jail. I just feel that way. I actually thought when the teabag people came, or whatever they're called, the teetotalers or whatever they're called, I actually thought when they had started that they were going to break away because the Republican Party was not conservative enough for them. But now that we've got the MAGA people, this just a I don't know. I know that they don't want to lose the name, but I have a feeling that they're going to go for. I think they're going to want to go out and just do their own, because they can't stay under the thumb of the Republicans who are staying in the middle.
I sit here and I look at the traditional Republicans, for lack of a better term, the Republicans that we grew up with, right? Frank and I especially, we're a little younger than both Grant and Lou, and I'm not joking. I'm just saying, we are, and in this area, and Master Grant, you were here forever, right? You're in Western PA forever, right? and until you actually decided to start doing things the right way and move out of here. I have a very hard time condemning traditional Republicans. I just look at them like they're the opposite side of the coin from us, from me, or from whatever, right? It's like you got two sides, and you need that balance. Master Grant, we always talk about the yin and yang, right? We always talk about we need a balance. And Frank and Lou have heard me talk forever about how the universe is always looking for balance, right? What we're seeing with these clowns, these jackasses who stormed the Capitol, these fucksticks who have for the last 4 years did nothing but enable Trump to do whatever the hell he wanted. Those are not traditional Republicans. These are an idealistic offshoot that was enabled by the Tea Party that we call the Teabaggers. And I got to be honest, I don't have much use for these folks. Okay, I don't have much. And you look at some of the traditional Republicans who kind of jump ship, and I'm talking about the Ted Cruz's, the Miss Lindsays and so on and so forth, who basically abandoned their principles in order to jump on board with these guys because they thought it was a quick and easy way to get reelected or the easy way out. I almost think that these guys are worse than the Jim Jordans of the world, who are only there because of this trend that you're seeing in a conservative Republican Party, who is very easily manipulated simply because conservatism is based on fear. Frank, what do you think? Am I too far off base with this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we're really in weird times in terms of how they're going to be defined and what they're going to use as a platform. I mean, I think that I find a hard time really putting a finger on what the platform of that Wildcat Party will be. I mean, if the conservative Republicans, as we knew them growing up, form their own new party, they'll certainly have a platform. They know what their platform is: fiscal conservatism, less government, those kind of things that they'll talk about. Whether they actually, work to make those things question, but that's what they stand on. As far as the other party goes, I mean, I think that it's a fear-based thing, like you said. I mean, you alluded to that towards the end of your commentary. It's all about fear of the other, fear of somebody who's not like us, fear of somebody else getting power. So, and that works real well, like in terms of driving people to action. It's that quick soundbite message, that we've talked about before. So to me, I think that's, it's not so much about a platform of action or change or what you're going to do governing wise, as opposed to we're going to stop somebody else from taking your power away.
Lou?
It's, to me, watching the last number of years, you tell me the last time any of these guys actually presented a policy to the public other than trickle down that hasn't worked, and I'm not even sure they presented that. And it's what's their platform? They're taking your guns, they kill babies, they don't want you to go to church and worship. Did I miss anything?
Not really. Master Grant, what do you think?
Well, it's like I think I'm going to echo what everybody said. It's about fear. So they're not giving platforms. They're just basing it on fear. Exactly. The other party kills babies. The other party's going to take away your rights. The other party's going to take your guns. The other party's, and so they just fearmonger. I feel, I've said this before, for a long time now, I believe that we would be best served with four parties. You would have a left party, you would have a left center, which would probably be the Democrats. You would then have the middle center, which would be the Republicans, traditional, and then you would have your right, party, which would be the MAGA Tea Party people. And so, and I think, but if that were to happen, imagine the fiscal loss that the Democrats and the Republicans would suffer. That's a ton of money, and so there is no incentive at all for the party to allow these people to break. They'll do everything that they can to keep them together, because it's all, it boils down to follow the money. So the both parties are desperately trying to hold things together. Now, when you look at the Democratic Party, I think that they're doing a better job keeping the left-leaning people involved, with the Bernie Sanders and those the like. Whereas with the Republican side, they're having a harder time controlling their right-leaning people, which it looks like it's going to splinter off. So right now, two parties, right? But I believe that we would best served if we broke into four.
It's interesting that you say that. Am I the only one who's seeing the chat right now?
Yeah, it came in right when I was speaking.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You know what? We went around the horn and we started with Frank, so we'll continue with Frank. Did you want to did you want to address Dark Sage in 9117?
Sage. So basically, we do have a right to run. People have a right to run into the Libertarian Party or the Green Party. As Patsy alluded to, and Master Grant alluded to, money is really what drives things in political parties right now. So we do have a few libertarians in Congress. One is Justin Amash out of Michigan. He's a representative under the Libertarian Party. We also have a couple senators that are libertarian. I believe Rand Paul is a libertarian in name.
He's a libertarian.
He labels himself as a libertarian. And then the Green Party, I'm not sure. I haven't checked if we have any Green Party people who represent any districts in Congress at this point. So I apologize. There is a Green Party. There have been people who have run on that party ticket for president as recently as 2016. There may have been somebody on some ballots in certain states in 2020 as well. But it's definitely something that, we could possibly label, the far left party could be labeled the Green Party, maybe. I mean, it might fit, but money is going to drive the success of those parties. And if there's money interest behind funding a Green Party or a Libertarian Party, then you'll see success corresponding to that in terms of representation. Because people at this point just know that the brand Democrat and Republican, and it's very difficult on local election bases to get people elected. I mean, we could talk from our own standpoint in our own county. If we were looking at running a candidate in a county, the chances of getting somebody elected on anything other than a Democrat or Republican ticket is slim and none. I mean, it would be political suicide to put your name out there without a Democrat or Republican label on it in our small county in Western Pennsylvania. And I'd imagine it's probably the same in a lot of places, not in all places across the United States, but it's probably the same in a lot of places. So it's going to take money to kind of build that reputation and get people out polls to say, oh, I like this guy. I don't care or this gal. I don't care what's in front of his or her name. I like their platform.
Lou.
Yeah, what Frank says true is, I mean, there's a lot of left Democrats that lean that way.
Mm-hmm.
Green
I'm one of them.
AOC would be one. The squad, so to speak, among others. How do you get up? Do you think if AOC would have ran as a Green Party, should be there right now out of New York?
No.
Even though that's a liberal mecca?
No.
Rand Paul, I don't know what you call him. I mean, he claims to be libertarian, but well, I won't say what I think of him right now. And his father isn't much better.
No.
Maybe splintering of the MAGA off of the Republican now would be a start. And anything that starts, I mean, how many years do you think it would take? to become an established thing.
Depends on how much money they have, I think.
Yeah.
Master Grant, what do you?
And who's backing them?
Yeah, big. Well, it's going to take money. Master Grant, what do you think?
Well, it does boil down to money. The only party, the only third party that has ever had any success was the Reform Party that was founded by Ross Perot, and it had success because Perot sunk, millions and millions of dollars into it, and it had success while he was the leader. The moment that he pulled out, the party disintegrated. And so and now it's become something I don't even know if it's still. I think it still exists, but it's along the lines of the Libertarians and the Greens, where if you're a local person, like for example myself, if I wanted to run, and if I really wanted to get elected for something, I would not run under the Green Party. I would not run under the Libertarian Party. I would run either Democrat or Republican because it's what would get you into office. So, and you would have to follow by their rules. So but now, this combination, like when we look at the MAGA group and the Tea Party, the MAGA group, of course, is centered under Donald Trump. So they have their leader, and so there could be, if Donald Trump goes away, the MAGAs all disintegrate. But we see that the Tea Parties don't really have a strong central leader. They're actually more built as a party, and they could become something that stays, maybe become stronger and bigger.
Yeah, the thing of it is, in order to run, or in order to have an impact on an election here in the U.S., two things need to happen. One of them is universal. Okay, the one that's universal is you need money. Okay, the other thing that matters is the let's say the demographic, for lack of a better term. And believe me, I got three guys here who will correct me. That will determine your chances of success. For example, in Western Pennsylvania, it's going to be very difficult to run for any office when you're not a Republican. It's going to be very difficult to do. As you expand beyond that, your chances open up, but so does your opposition. Okay. We do have Bernie Sanders is a great example of an independent. I'm sitting here with three Democrats. I am an independent. So it is possible to do it, but boy, you need a lot of backing, and that backing translates into a lot of money. Or you need a niche. Rand Paul and his father, who's no longer in politics, have a niche, and and Bernie Sanders has a niche, and that's why you're seeing at least two folks on the national scene who are capable of running, who are not a Democrat or a Republican, even though they caucus with one of those two parties. Okay, Rand Paul caucuses with the Republican Party. Bernie Sanders caucuses with the Democrats. Okay, but technically, as far as their registration is concerned, they are not part of either party. It's sort of a strange hybrid that we have here, where we have two incredibly powerful parties that you're really not going to do a whole lot at this stage, in this, ending of the game, without the backing of one of those two parties, regardless of how you identify. Okay. It's not to say it can't be done. Mathematically, it's very difficult to do because you need money in order to do it. And those are the two parties that have the money.
And he raises a good point. I mean, assuming that Dark Sage is a man, if you're a woman, I apologize. She or he raises a good point. That, if you go back and trace back to the beginning of our country, some of our founding fathers had a very big concern over party politics, and they were concerned that party politics could destroy this republic that we have. And right now, the fact that we are so ingrained in these two parties, maybe it would be in the best interest of our country if somehow there was a mandate, but it's hard to mandate that. How do you mandate that, there must be X percentage of representation from 4 different parties? I mean, I suppose we could do it, but we also have some big issues we have to tackle around the Electoral College, which, at this point is a constitutional issue. Clearly, when you look at the history of our elections right now, I don't know what it is. I mean, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9. I don't know. It's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
That the top vote getter didn't necessarily win the Electoral College. Maybe it's not that high, but I mean, prior to this election, it was, they paralleled. The top vote getter got the Electoral College. But I mean, I think somebody showed something that said 20,000 or 30,000 votes or something like that could have swung this election. So even though, Biden won by 7 million votes, if 20 or 30,000 votes had gone the other way in select areas, maybe that number's a little low, but less than 100,000. I mean, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, if votes had gone a different way in maybe one other state, Biden could have still won by 6 million plus votes and lost this election. And that's terrible. That's terrible in the sense of a representative democracy. And we have to tackle that as a country. And there's various ways to do that. One would be to give statehood to DC and Puerto Rico. One would be to maybe adjust the balance of power in terms of how we count representatives. I mean, we count representatives by the census for the House of Representatives, but by the Senate, we've always said, well, every state, if you're a state, you get 2 automatically. I mean, I'm not so sure that's wise given where we are right now. So, there's a lot of issues. Maybe party politics is something that could help in that regard. But I mean, I feel like it's something that we'd be biting off something that we really don't even understand how it would impact, really impact governance in our country right now. It may be something that a good study would reveal, but I don't have the answer to how it would impact us, nor do I even have the intuition as to how it would impact us right off the bat. And I feel like we have some really big issues to tackle right away.
Do you guys think that either or both DC and
Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico should be states? Should be granted statehood? Do you think both or either, or which one do you think?
They're both
If not
bigger
both, which one?
than either Dakota. Why are there 2 Dakota? That was political, so I would say yeah.
Cannot argue with that.
Cannot argue with that. All right, it's not like West Virginia where it was a civil war that separated them, right? Or Virginia, I'm sorry.
Here's a piece of trivia for you. There's 126 counties in the United States that are bigger than, population-wise, that are bigger than Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota, and Delaware.
One of them's got to be here in Western PA.
Allegheny County has as many people as North and South Dakota combined. That's the city of Pittsburgh.
Right.
And surrounding area.
So before I ask you about eliminating the Electoral College, I still want to hear your opinions about DC and God, I'm calling it blank again.
Puerto Rico.
Jeez,
I say,
Frank, I'm not even drinking.
I say make them states, but do you think they have the votes? Because Manchin will suck ass and go the other way.
Well, I just mean idealistically.
Yeah. I say yes. They should have been. I mean, we're supporting them. Why don't they have representation?
Oh, I agree. Master Grant?
Oh, I believe they should be incorporated. There's no question. Both. Now, there's going to be a lot of pushback because both would be heavily. I mean, that would just the Democratic side. The Democrats would just, it would be a huge boost. So there would be a lot of resistance, and there is a lot of resistance, and that's pretty much why. So, yeah, I am all for it.
Frank?
Yeah, I think so, and I've got to imagine that with the balance of power right now, it's a tenuous balance of power, but with the balance of power being all 3 branches well, not all three branches, but the legislative branch and the executive branch, the governing branches of our elected officials and our politics here in the United States, our governance in the power column of the Democrats right now. That there's got to be something they could dangle out there for the Republicans to say, look, you need something to save yourselves. You need something to bring something home to your people at home. You need to have some kind of benefit that we can give you. We'll play a little ball with you on that, but you have to give us statehood in one of these places, at least one of these places. And quite frankly, Puerto Rico is a tough one because DC is the easier sell. Puerto Rico is a tough one because I'm not sure the people of Puerto Rico want to be a state right now.
Yep.
They're looking at our country. They've always looked at our country with kind of that side eye, like, it's scary to say we're gonna join this country as a state because what are the obligations in regard to that? But at the same time, they're looking at us right now and saying, "What a mess," So the people there would have to want it. The people of DC overwhelmingly want it. I mean, it's a mainland, just island in the middle of our country that's basically got no representation. They're taxation without representation. That's what their license plate says. I think you have to, in order to justify that farce moving forward, it takes a lot of crazy machinations. So I think that's the easier sell. And politically, you could probably dangle a carrot in front of the Republicans enough to say, give us this one, we'll give you something in return.
Before we get into the current events of the day, and these things move so rapidly, I have been a huge proponent for as long as I can remember, not just recently, in abolishing the electoral college, and literally for the reasons that Lou pointed out just a few minutes ago, right? Because if you do the math, okay, at some point, whenever you're counting votes, at some point you're going to reach a number where anything above that number, those votes are meaningless. Okay, because you've reached a threshold where the electors in your state are going to go one direction or the other. Okay, let's just say 100 because people can relate to 100. Once one party or one side reaches 100 votes, anything above that is meaningless. Okay, they have the threshold that they need in order for that state to go either Democrat or Republican. To me, that is not a representative electoral process. Okay, because once my state, our state, three or four of us, reaches that point, anything above that doesn't matter. Okay, to me, that's bullshit. Okay, that I can't comprehend something like that whenever in every other election that I vote for, once that you get the top of the ticket, which is the presidential run rate, everything below that is all popular vote. Okay, you have the most votes, you win. Period. End of story. But the very top, it doesn't work that way. That to me, that's a big problem. And this idea of, well, you're not representing the states equally, shouldn't really come into play, because if my vote should count just as much as somebody living in Idaho, somebody that Lou said a few minutes ago, has less population than one county in my state. Okay, so if 100 people vote before I do, like I said, that's threshold being 100, my vote really doesn't count. Okay, because my state's already reached that threshold. Simply because there's 10 people in Idaho or North or South Dakota. My vote should not be worth less because somebody in a state 4,000 miles away from me has less people in it than where I live. it really shouldn't matter because my vote should count just as much as theirs does. And I'm curious what you guys think. Should we abolish this? And we know why there was an electoral college, and I really don't want to get into why because it's racist as fuck. But do you think we should just? Do you think, first of all, should we eliminate it? Number two, do you think we actually now have a chance to eliminate the electoral college? I'll go the opposite way. I'll start with Lou this time.
I was just thinking the electoral college needs eliminated. I also believe the Senate needs eliminated, and those 100 people need redistributed with the Congress population-wise, and just have 532 congressmen. Do you know of another democracy in the world that has 2 separate houses?
No.
That you have to put bullshit through?
No.
If you eliminate that, and then you eliminate the money that the Supreme Court allowed and have elections like the UK, I don't know if Dark Sage is still on, can enlighten us, but if there's no private money going into elections, I'll bet those parties splinter into 4 before you know it, because you took the factor of money out of the equation.
Yep. Master Grant?
Well, I think Dark Sage was from Australia. He said he was from Australia. But in the UK, there's the House of Lords, and based on peerage, and but it's not functional as our Senate is. So I agree with Lou that we should have just the Congress, and the Senate could have a limited role of some sort, like maybe modeled after the House of Lords or something similar. But as it is, the Senate holds the most power, I think, whereas the Congress is what's elected by the people. And if you think about third, fourth parties, if I were to go and try to run for Congress, if I selected like the Constitution Policy or Constitution Party or something, Green Party, there's a slim chance that I might win, right? With that, maybe probably not, but there's at least a slim chance, a better chance. I would never win going for a Senate seat using one of those parties, and of course you won't win if you do it as a president. So I feel that I think it would be a huge step forward to remove both the Electoral College and to limit or even remove the Senate. But the Electoral College is just here we are. We are the United States. We're like the flag holder of democracy, and yet we don't even trust our own people to make a vote for the highest position in the land.
Frank?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's, in an ideal world, we'd get rid of the Electoral College. And I love that, we're talking about either limiting or eliminating the Senate. And I think the way you sell that is to sell fiscal conservatism and less government. And, if the Republican Party is all about that, then you talk about how much money would be saved by not funding lifetime health care for another 100 senators the next round and the next round and the next round, and it goes on forever. And, and all their staff members that we pay and all their per diem expenses and everything else. It's a ton of money keeping the building going. It's a ton of money. The staff that, staffs those buildings, they have multiple buildings. It's not just the one building. They have office buildings. It's just a ton of money for basically nothing. What have they done? They've done nothing. They've been a chamber that has blocked everything. And we can run into that same problem again, whether it's Democrat or Republican. We can run into that same problem again. So I think we have to sell the idea that it's a fiscal savings. It's a end of bureaucracy, which a lot of the MAGA folks and the Tea Party folks hate. They hate bureaucracy. They hate that things don't get done. I think can appeal to those people with that. I think that getting rid of the Electoral College might be very difficult. I can acknowledge that. I'd love to see it done. But trying to come up with a compelling argument other than the real fact, as you stated it, Patsy, it's bullshit. it gives less power to a vote from somebody that's in a more populous state than somebody in a less populous state. It doesn't make any sense. It's not representative democracy. That should be enough in and of itself. But we know the Republican Party is going to hang on to it, to the death. I mean, Dark Sage, I love his idea. I think as we've been sitting here, and my intuition is trying to find some way to find a path forward for another party. Master Grant pointed out, as an individual running for a representative seat, you've got a chance. I mean, if you can connect with the people, the constituents in your locale, it almost doesn't matter what's in front of your name as long as you're going door to door knocking in a regular election cycle when we don't have COVID. You could go out and meet people and really make a connection. And you can make that connection and say, I'm from the Constitutional Party, and win. But then there's no support around you. There's no remaining Constitutional Party people in Congress with you. And I think that's the point he was making, is that, yeah, I can go out and win as a Constitutional Party or a Green Party or a liberal, libertarian, but then I have no institutional support around me. So right. As I think about this from an intuition standpoint, how do we change that? Well, I think one of the things is you find these people that are disenfranchised, and there's a lot of them out there. You find people that are young and say, this system's not working. We need something better. We need something different. And you go to them at college campuses, you go to the people who showed up in the 2020 election, there was a bigger, younger demographic showing up at the polls right now. And I think you appeal to those folks and say, let's start the movement. The movement is this. We need more party representation for people like you that are going to actually be you and listen to you because it's coming from your generation. And then when you start it from that generation, it may not win today, but it gets ingrained in that generation as it moves forward. So I think that's the intuition as to how you do it, because if it's got to be done organically without necessarily money will flow later once they see influence is there. But that's my idea as we've just fomented it sitting here today.
Do you guys think, and like I said, I do want to get into current events, but do you guys think that if that were possible, if everything that Frank said was actually happened, we would get more younger people involved in the process because all of a sudden they feel that they're actually being represented now and actually represented equally? Well, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it would make a big difference. I mean, you have, let's face it, look at the generations now. Well, you have the young ones like your son, they did get more involved. But you have kind of a big gap. A lot of those younger ones don't get involved till they're older.
Right. It very well could be that the younger people in this cycle was an anomaly.
Yeah, I voted. First president I voted for was Carter in '76. I was 19. They had just changed the law that year, so I was able to vote for president. It had been 21 prior to that. And the reason it was changed was because of Vietnam. They were saying, well, hell, you're getting all these kids killed and they can't even come home and vote. Which had happened then. And, but I'm probably one of the few that I think I only missed one, possibly two primaries since 1976. I voted in every general election since then.
Wow.
So that there can't be, that's a long way going back.
Yeah.
You need to get younger people involved because let's face it, once you get, I'm a boomer. How many boomers that think the younger generation's entitled were the most entitled generation there ever was in this country?
Almost all of them.
I challenge any young person listening there. I quit a job at noon and started in the mill 4 hours later on another job with just because I passed the physical and they needed a body. Tell me where you could do that today.
That's a great point. Master Grant,
was making $2.75 an hour, and I walked into a job that was paying $7.75. That was in 1979. Okay, the
Wow.
minimum wage today is $7.25. Think about that.
Wow. Master Grant, we have yeah, lots of younger folks on our floors. What do you think? Do you think if we were to do this, we would actually get them more involved?
I think we would. I absolutely do. I think because it would be. I think that there's a high degree of disenfranchisement right now because people say, I don't have the money, I don't have the connections, I don't have the, and so they don't even attempt. I think that if we were to scale it back, I think that because it would be something now that realistic goals that could be obtained, and so yeah, I think that you would see more. I think it would be very energizing, to be honest.
Frank, we have a whole bunch of people who say that that they don't care about me. My vote doesn't matter. That they're going to do whatever they want. Uh, you think opening this thing up like this would get more people involved?
It would, and you'd have some growing pains, of course. You're going to have some part of that where you're going to have some unruliness. I mean, obviously, folks that feel disenfranchised are going to want to have, the party's going to have to, accommodate a lot of different voices until it finds a real good, direction to pull forward in. But I think it would appeal. There would be an initial appeal, and you'd have a big rush to kind of join that type of situation. Good leadership would be critical to kind of moving it forward, and also being able to, keep moving forward without then disenfranchising the people that walked in the door. Because, let's face it, there's going to be a variety of voices.
Yeah, I honestly believe if you can tell somebody that you're important and that you matter, they're in for the long haul. Right. And you have to be legit. You can't just tell them that. I mean, you have to mean it. But if you get a group of people, let's say, I don't know, 18 to 24, right? Mm-hmm. And you tell them your voice means as much and carries as much weight as somebody my age does. Right. And we are now on equal footing. Boy, you're going to get a whole bunch of people involved and a whole bunch of people moving forward.
Yeah, and you have to come up with something that's going to unify those folks. That's going to be a unifying, instead of the hate party that we talked about. Maybe it's the Green Party. Maybe it's something like that where you can talk about sustainable living, sustainable, economic, sustainable growth. In terms of the environment. You talk to young people and say, what are your concerns? What are your fears? A lot of them are afraid that we're not going to have a planet to live on, that we're not going to have clean water, that we're not going to have clean air to breathe, that we're killing our earth, our only place that we have to live. So, yep. Building it around that could be a unifying, party platform, but, having certain lines of thought along with that accompanies other people's concerns. But yeah, I think and then you empower people, like you said. What are you going to do? I mean, you're going to be a party leader in your area. You're going to be the person that's helping to find and cultivate candidates. Maybe you are a candidate. We're going to support you as a party. If you're going to at least, push forward these platforms, however you choose to do that, we're going to support you. We're backing you.
Yeah.
Here's a quick backtrack. We were talking about the Republican Party possibly fracturing. I don't know if you saw this. It looks like it was 5:09. GOP Senator Lisa Murkowski calls for Trump's removal. Unsure if she will remain in the party.
Yeah, you're seeing that. You're seeing a lot of that now, and it's funny. And I don't want to be a cynical asshole, but you're seeing that with 12 days left. Who the fuck cares now?
Yeah.
Right? Where the hell were you 2 years ago? Where the hell were you 3 years ago? Where the hell were you during impeachment?
Yeah, no doubt.
Well,
no
yeah,
doubt.
She voted for no impeachment.
Yeah.
Right. Now all of a sudden she's saying what? Oh, he's got to go?
I'm
Get
as angry.
The fuck out of here.
I'm as angry as you are, and I had that same reaction. Most of the time, Patsy. The only thing I would say at this moment is if Murkowski wants to caucus with the Democrats, if she's truly intent on that, let's take it. Let's take it right now. I think it's bullshit. They're all trying to run for cover, especially Ted Cruz saying stuff like, "Oh, I've disagreed with this." That's bullshit. Murkowski too. But if she wants to actually say, I'm going to leave the party and will caucus with the Democrats, we'll take that 51-49. Let's take the 51-49.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that, Frank, is I think it's not just short term, incredibly short term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I really do. I think it's she's all on board with the Democrats until January 20th.
Yeah.
And then she's back to her old same bullshit.
Yes, if I could, I wanted to just touch a little bit on the sustainable growth and sustainable economic living. You know, back in the 70s, there was a professor Meadows in a group that actually ran computer-based projections based on the Earth has finite resources; it can only support X number of people. And so they actually ran these projections, and they said that at the rate in the 70s that we were going, that within 60 years, we would start to face calamities. Things would start to fail. It's interesting that we're at the precipice right now of that prediction, and we're starting to see. But unfortunately, people who are in our Sorry, jeez, a whiz.
That's okay. Mine does that shit all the time. Don't worry about it.
We're seeing like boomers, Generation X. I'm not sure that we're the generations that should be in charge, because we've ignored everything about the sustainability and sustainable living, we've ignored it. And we don't believe it. I mean, for crying out loud, we got people who don't even believe in climate change. So I think that it's time that we get the ones who will be impacted, the millennials, the generation next, whatever, the next generation after them, because they're the ones who are going to have to deal with our mess. And really, they see that. They're starting to see it. They realize, and that I really believe that they need to be starting to get more and more involved, because they're the only ones, I believe, who are actually going to take those type of thoughts and those type of things seriously and implement rules and laws, and that will allow us to grow at a sustainable rate and manage at a sustainable rate.
I honestly believe it's going to be Generation Z that's going to do it. And boy, I tell you, I'm going to catch a lot of hell for this. I know I am personally, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in millennials. But Gen Z, my son's age, Frank, your oldest daughter's age, and your son's age, those are the guys. Those are the folks I have a whole lot of faith in. They have shown over and over and over again that not only can they see through the bullshit, they're not going to put up with it. And that's the generation I have a shit ton of faith in. I'm not so sure about ours, and I definitely don't have a whole lot of faith in the generation behind us, but the Gen Zs, they got their shit together. I have a whole lot of faith and a whole lot of confidence in them. I said we wanted to get into current events. We're quickly running out of time. The sitting president said he's not going to be there during the inauguration for Biden, even though last night he acknowledged that there will be a change in leadership on January 20th, which we know it was a prepared statement, and he didn't write it because, let's face it, it was grammatically correct. So there's no way in hell he wrote it. He doesn't have the ability to actually form complete sentences anymore. But, good move or bad move? Biden's presser today said it was one of the few things they agree on is him not being there. And on one hand, I think as a gesture, as a formality, he should be there, but he's probably going to be the guy that pisses in the punch bowl anyhow. So what do you think? Does it really matter that he's there or not? Frank?
No, and I think I think the good thing is, from the perspective of Biden's announcement or presser, is it a good move? Yeah. I mean, I think that you've got a situation where unprecedented, right? We just went through this situation a couple days ago where the Capitol was stormed. I mean, to anybody's eyes that is not looking through the MAGA colored glasses, you see what the reason for that was. So why are you going to invite the guy that just tried to attempt a coup? Try to attempt a coup on our government. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced he's done. I mean, he can say there's going to be new leadership. He could be talking about the additional leadership in his new cabinet. If he's still got the nuclear codes, he could try to launch a nuclear war between now and January 20th. He could try to do a lot of things that upends our democracy. So I say keep him as far away as possible. I don't give a crap. I don't need to see the formality of him standing there acknowledging and clapping or just smiling or just standing there and watching the transfer of power. I don't need to see that. It's disingenuous. We know that he doesn't want to see that transfer. We know that he thinks that he's legitimately the president in his own mind. I don't need to see him there. It's a good move that Biden basically just said, piss off. I'm fine with that.
Lou?
Speaking of nuclear codes, there's supposedly today, this is a few hours ago, that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told House Democrats that she has gotten assurances there are safeguards in place in the event President Trump wants to launch a nuclear weapon. She spoke to General Milley about that, so basically she bypassed the head of defense secretary if she went straight to the general on that, says, which I'm sure he's in agreement.
I don't know. Those guys make me nervous because they just like to follow orders.
Well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and it looks like there's going to be up or down vote on impeachment by Monday, from what I've been gathering here.
I really feel it, and Frank, hear me out on this, because I really want your input on this, because I'm just a silly person with an engineering degree. Real engineering, by the way. My feeling is the impeachment thing was the better play. And the reason I say that is because if the 25th Amendment was invoked, it pretty much kneecaps New York's eventual charges that are going to be on Trump. Because if you invoke the 25th Amendment, you're saying that he's unfit to do something. And by impeachment, you're saying not only is he fit to do it, he knew what he was doing. To me, that seems the better play. And I was real curious. Lou and I have been going back and forth, and Master Grant, last night with the both of us, we're really hoping for your opinion on this. Are we off base in this, or do you think, or what's your opinion?
No, I think quickly, I know we're running out of time. I think quickly you're on base. You're on target with that. I think that, it creates that issue that you've raised. It also creates the issue amongst whatever remaining support that Trump has, that, the quote unquote deep state has come in to remove him, that somehow there's this cabal behind the scenes that comes in with the 25th Amendment and removes him, as opposed to the actual procedures that are in place with impeachment. They'll never agree with it, but at least there's procedures, there's an actual trial. I think that the culpability that it provides under the impeachment is a much better look for the country, as opposed to just saying he's not capable of holding the office anymore. I agree with you for a lot of reasons, and the ones I just basically said, the ones you've elaborated on and that I've agreed with, and those that I've said.
Just on a personal thing, I wanted everybody to see this. That asshole that was in Pelosi's office. Well, he's been arrested.
Good.
This piece of shit. And I realize it's a Huffington Post, but let's face it, some things are just true, and that's it. I'm almost convinced this asshole should be facing execution just for treason against his own country. He at least should be spending the rest of his life in jail. What do you think is a proper punishment for this shit? Because this guy isn't the only one, but that seems to be like the popular picture. What do you think about these assholes?
Wasn't
Luke?
her laptop stolen out of her office also?
I don't know. I know. I think it was Grassley had his iPad stolen.
And I believe Merkley from Oregon had his laptop stolen, I saw earlier today.
Quite possibly. I will tell you this: if somebody stole an iPad, if they set it up properly, it's going to be real easy to find, right? Because you can just track it. It's going to be real easy to find. If it was set up properly. These guys are older than Moses. They probably don't know how to do it right, but.
I think Grassley's the same age as my father.
That's a little older than 50, isn't it?
87.
Yeah, that's a little older.
Nice.
Grant.
Should he really be this powerful at this point in his life?
Right? Master Grant, what do you think?
Well, I just thank heavens that we have software engineers, because those are the engineers that count. I think that
Was
these
waiting.
guys. I think that that man. I think the man who had the Confederate flag. I think the guy who was in the chamber, and the guy that pushed that police officer up the steps. They need to be thrown in jail with no chance of parole. They are traitors to the country. They need to be thrown in jail, and that's done. I don't know if I'm as far as for execution, but life imprisonment definitely. And then all the others, everyone who stepped into the Capitol. The people that were there that were protesting had that right, but when they broke and entered into the Capitol building, that's right there a federal offense, and they knew the day what was happening inside. They had absolutely no good intentions when they moved into the Capitol, and every single one of those people should be arrested and fined. And based on their severity of what they've done, there should be increments for the people who just strolled around. That's a federal crime on your record forever, with a fine, and then just start from there.
Frank?
How about the police that you got on video that pulled aside the barricade? Those two
Yeah, we
guys.
showed that for 2 consecutive days.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I missed those days, but thanks for covering that, and because that's important. I mean, that right there is, to me, that does rise to the level of treason, as you mentioned, Master Grant. I think those are the folks that have actively conspired to undermine the most important elements of our democracy. They actively did that.
Right.
It wasn't funny. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't cute. They were specifically working to undermine the important mechanism of our democracy, and that needs to be punished. Absolutely, it needs to be punished. We hear the word sedition for some of these guys that walked into the halls of Congress, but I think, to me, the guys that moved those barricades, that's treason. And I think that the folks that planned, that didn't plan to have enough of a security force there to stop this, or the adequate or the proper security force to stop this, I think that was treasonous. Because they absolutely knew. There was a guy on Twitter that says, "How am I, a criminal defense attorney in Florida, aware for 17 days I was aware of what was going to go on at the Capitol? I was aware for 17 days. I knew from the resources that I had, the sources I had, that this was going to go on at the Capitol." And the FBI, the Department of Defense, anybody else did not know this? Come on. They knew.
They knew. Of course they did. Of course they did.
And you now have on social media that is the reason Trump's not going to be there is because it's a million militia march. They going to do anything for this? I mean, they got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just to interrupt everybody, Twitter has permanently suspended Trump's account.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Remember, it was was it a 24 or 48 hour thing? According to Brian Taylor Cohen, who, if you're not following, shame on you for 6 weeks to borrow a Mike Lang saying. If you guys don't know who Mike Lang is, again, shame on you for 6 weeks. But there you go. Twitter has permanently suspended Donald Trump's account due to the risk of further incitement and violence. Goes along with what's happening with I believe Facebook did the same shit and a couple others. I will ask the question again: is it too little, too late, Frank?
It's too late, but it's not too little. It needed to be done. That's what needed to be done. And the fact that they took away that power or that megaphone is important even now, because let's face it, a lot of times that what Trump gets amplified through Twitter, even though Twitter doesn't have the reach that Facebook does have directly, Twitter has the reach through the media, because the media reads his tweets and they repeat them and they repeat them and they repeat them. So that megaphone being taken away from him, even at this hour, is hugely important, because he will not have a platform to reach the way that he did before. I wish they had done it sooner. They had grounds to do it sooner, and shame on them for not doing it sooner. But it is not too little. It's at least been done now. So thankfully for that.
Master Grant.
Yes, this is good news. It was it was a megaphone. Exactly. And this is great. Now he's just gonna move to some other platform, but that's fine. He's gonna miss the mass audience that he has now.
Lou, after you get rid of Twitter and Facebook, there's the amount of people he can reach gets dramatically cut. You're now literally in your echo chamber after losing those two. Too late, too little. What do you think?
Oh, I'm glad he's gone. I mean, there was a lot of people following that. I mean, if he's banned,
Bunches.
hopefully he's banned from Facebook. And
He is.
also, wasn't he ranting and raving on a YouTube live stream Wednesday night, if I'm not mistaken?
If I'm not mistaken, YouTube. I really don't know what Google's doing with YouTube. I don't know if they've gone to the extreme that both Facebook and Twitter have. I'm assuming that if they have not, they're not far behind. At least I hope so. But it would appear that his captive audience has been significantly cut. Significantly.
Yeah, I mean, he still has the parlor, but
So, like I said, it's the echo chamber now. Frank made a good point, though, right? Whenever you kill Twitter, CNN, MSNBC, and the like, they're not really going to be too willing to repost or comment on something that he does on Parler, right?
Or Facebook.
Well, Facebook's gone, right? He's off of Facebook. He's been banned. I say it's too late. This shit should have happened. He should have started being censored 2 years ago. Here's my question for you guys. What would be so wrong with taking the head of a country? I don't give a shit what country it is. But just for the sake of argument, let's say all of them. That they cannot post anything to these social medias until that social media platform reviews their tweet or their post. What would be so wrong with that? Because let's face it, these platforms are a private entity, right? They're not public. There is no First Amendment regulation there, right? You give that away as soon as you click that button that nobody reads that says you agree to all this shit. What would be so wrong with because if you're going to tell me there's a big difference between what I post and what Donald Trump posts, Okay, his word obviously carries more weight than mine, right? I only have a couple thousand followers. And I'm not the leader of anything. I'm not even the leader in my own house, as much as I wanted to think I am, right?
This is a tough question because the communication that Trump does, he speaks volumes with his secret words and his secret. For example, Proud Boys, stand stand ready, whatever that message was back when. That's very sinister. And even at even the thing he just said on Wednesday, where he said, "It's only just begun." Another sinister meaning behind that word, those words. And so by going onto Twitter, he's able to feed his the outside with his communication, without directly saying, but he's able to communicate. So I agree. I think it should be censored.
Luke?
Would you believe I just got a work email? I get sidetracked. But, it's like, but waiting for that all day. Guy sends
You get it now. Well, by race, we should have finished 5 minutes ago. So, yeah. Frank, what do you think? Should these things be reviewed? Because let's face it, you have the leader of a country, arguably the most powerful country in the world, who is still saying he didn't lose the election. It's been stolen from him.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, I couldn't catch the very
be
first part.
reviewed before they're made public.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that there's a danger in the sense that, we don't want to have some filter in front of everything that our leaders tell us. I mean, we want to be able to have some unfiltered messaging. But I mean, I think that they've been handling it. They were poor in their response initially, but they started handling it better with flagging and noting things. And I think they can get stronger with that to some extent. But I think that, preventing it from coming out at all, even as a private company, I mean, just ban them, ban them like they did. Say, go somewhere else to take your message out there. If you want to, buy airtime, that's fine. But I have some problem with filtering it. If you're going to let them have the platform, certainly you can flag it, in my opinion. But I think pre-filtering it is a concern. I don't know. It just feels funny to me.
Yeah, fair enough. The problem that you have is, it's the old saying, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Whenever you have the ability to put out this kind of propaganda and this bullshit, there has to be some sort of check. There has to be some sort of balance, right? We go back to the same argument that we made how long ago, that the universe is always looking for balance. And if you can't provide that balance in some form or another, and I'm not saying, I just threw that idea of reviewing before it was made public out there. It could be anything, but there has to be some sort of balance, because if not, you're as culpable as he is, because it's wrong and you're letting it out there. It's like I said, it's not like one of us saying, "Oh, that the election was rigged." Well, who the fuck are we, right? But when you are the leader of the free world saying that, that's a big difference. And that's, there has to be a balance someplace. There has to be. And if you are incapable of coming up with a way to administer that balance, then your platform needs to go away, because that's a responsibility that you can't handle, and you should have been able to. But that's just some middle-aged martial artist talking, I guess. Right, Master Grant? I think that's a good place to stop. Hopefully people think about that for a little bit. We will be back on Wednesday. Maybe all four of us back on Wednesday, hopefully. Same bad time, same bad channel. Hopefully we still have a Republic to talk about by then. I don't know, man. I get nervous. This guy's got 12 weeks left. He's
12 days.
I'm sorry, 12 days. I've got 12 weeks. Oh my God.
Yeah, where did 12 weeks?
Those 12 days, trust me, are going to feel like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. We have two guys who made history in Georgia. We haven't even talked about for a week.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't even touched upon them, and they made history.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, these next 12 days are going to feel like 3 months. They really are. But trust me, folks, there is at least a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is not the train coming at you. There's actually a light. But we will be back on Wednesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Hopefully, you know, it's all four of us again. But we'll see how it goes. You know, we all have jobs. We all have lives to leave. So we'll see what happens. But until then, everybody, stay safe. Keep the faith. And goodbye. As I have to say, because my mother will give me hell if I don't. Goodbye, good luck, and God bless.